And hello there, all you Stay Tuners. Welcome back to another episode of Stay Tuned Sports. And it's your good friend Jimbo here, back again. After a week hiatus, I was on vacation. I was camping. I was looking for Mr. Conor McGregor's balls to finally get a fight or something. But who knows, maybe he'll show up to Bare Knuckle this weekend. Supposedly the rumor is that he's going to be in attendance for the Lobov Malganagi fight, or however you say his name. I just call him the Chihuahua. That's always sounds like to me. He's like, hey. They had the face-off today, press conference face-off, whatever you want to call it. And it was a pretty intense stare down, but a lot to talk about today. Like I said, I know I wasn't here last week, and Shoulders and me didn't do a show last week either because I was pretty much in the wilderness. But UFC 238 was 2 weeks ago, and hell of a card. Definitely was a very good card. And I'll give UFC credit. The past couple cards that they put out, fight nights and stuff like that, have been pretty, entertaining. This one you had a nasty knockout that we'll get into, and you had a ugly, gruesome eye injury for Donald Cerrone, which surprisingly he had no broken orbitals or anything like that. It was just basically pure air in his eye socket. But like I said, we'll touch on that. A possible big name UFC fighter will be a free agent, may test the waters. We'll touch on that as well. And once again, some more retirement news. And this one was one of my favorite trash talker guys in a way. And then we'll end the show with the previewing, or whatever you want to call it, of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 6. Here it is a year later, a year and maybe 2 weeks since the first pay-per-view, and it sounds like they're still going strong. They're getting some names now. We got Chris Lieben on the roster now, Lobov, Paul Malganagi, and you got some other ones doing cross promotions with as far as Beck Rollins signing with Bellator, kind of putting the Bare Knuckle on hold for right now. So I'm curious to see what they do with her belt there, if that's gonna be stripped or whatnot. But to kick off the show, like I said, we're not gonna spend a whole lot of time on UFC 238 just because, like I said, it was 2 weeks ago. But I do want to touch on a couple of the fights that happened. First and foremost, the Tony Ferguson Donald Cerrone fight. I see a lot of people saying that Tony should fight for the title now. It's an unfortunate event that what happened to Cerrone, and Dana White said they may try to play it back. Listen, Tony, he was picking him apart. Who would have known if Cowboy didn't blow his nose? Because that's basically what happened. Was he after the second round, I believe it was, right before the ref said, are you guys ready? He had a broken nose and went to try, I guess, blow the blood out or whatever, and just completely swelled his eye completely shut. It looked like Rocky 4 when Rocky's eye was completely closed. I was waiting for him to yell, "Cut me, Mick." But doctor had to stop it. It was the right call. You can see out one eye. What are you going to do about that? Me personally, as a fan, I would like to see them play it back and run it back, but I don't think that's the right thing. I think Tony has done enough, has won enough to deserve a title shot against the champ, whoever that will be in the coming months, whether it be Khabib or Dustin Poirier. And if he does get the shot at the belt, I think a fight with Poirier may be a more entertaining fight. And I think he could beat Khabib, but I think Khabib may try to take him down and wrestle him. But Ferguson has come on strong the past year or so, 2 years, and seemed like he's really getting into his prime years and just fine-tuning all his trait. As far as Cowboy, I saw someone post out there about him facing Justin Gaethje. That fight, I think, would be a really good fight. Both guys are two tough son of a bitches. You know, Gaethje with his knockout power. Cerrone obviously has a chin because there was a lot of good hits that Ferguson put on him, and I mean, stunned him, but nothing that, you know, completely took him out of the game. And I want to give a little respect to Ferguson too, because right after that, you know, everybody was booing about the stoppage, and I don't understand fans when they do that. I mean, come on, the dude's eyes completely shut. You gotta, I know you're there to get entertained and everything, and you paid all that money, and it sucks to see a fight get stopped, but nothing against WWE, but this is not scripted. This stuff happens. I mean, look at the Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman match a few years ago with when Silva broke his leg. Did you really think they planned that? Like, have a little common sense when it comes to stuff like this, you know. But I want to give respect to Ferguson for coming out and saying, you know, if he wants to run it back, run it back. He may be regretting that now, because I don't think if he didn't say that, I don't think Dana White would have ever came out this quick and said, you know, we're thinking about running it back. But then after that fight was the women's flyweight championship bout with Valentina Shevchenko against Jessica Ai. Now, I picked Jessica Ai with the upset, and wow. I mean, I think they're still looking for her head. She got kicked so hard. I mean, knocked out cold. Again, give respect to Shevchenko, because, you know, you're told to jump on top of the opponent and keep punching until the ref pulls you off. And I don't think Jessica Ai's body hit the floor yet, and she knew she was out on her feet. That kick, that had to be up there with the Gonzaga Crow Cop kick. I mean, just nasty. Some of the pictures I saw, you know, the ankles, like her whole body, Jessica Ai's body was all tensed up, and like it was a scary knockout. Luckily, Jessica was okay. You know, she was able to walk backstage on her own power, if you want to call it that. But I'll tell you what, even Paige Van Zandt said this past week, I don't know who's going to beat her. I don't know who's going to beat Shevchenko. Her boxing is top notch, and then now if she could mix in these kicks like that, man, I just hope that, you know, UFC and Dana White gives the flyweight division a little bit more time to hopefully bring some talent in. I really think, to kind of touch on that too, I really think the UFC should invest a little bit of money in like more scouting for women like this. if you remember when Ronda Rousey won the championship belt in Strikeforce and came over to UFC, and Dana White was totally against it and this and that, and he let her fight, and she went on to that long tear of what was it, like 6-7 wins or whatever. And then Holly Holm came, and Holly Holm came. Nunez started coming up. Misha Tate. When Ronda came over, just that talent pool wasn't there just yet. And now, if you look at it, it's a little more competitive now. It took a couple of years to build it up. Adding new weight divisions doesn't grow overnight. You gotta take your time with it and find the right fighters for that weight division. Just like the main event for UFC 238 with Henry Cejudo and Marlon Moraes in the bantamweight division. As much as I didn't like Henry, I gotta agree with Joe Rogan. The first round his game plan wasn't really working, and the second round he switched it up. He figured it out, and he got the TKO and claimed the belt. Now he's a 2-division champ. He joins, I believe it's Conor McGregor, Daniel Cormier, and Emmanuel Nunez as champs. It's kind of funny that once Conor won it, it's the new thing now, and I hope UFC kind of backs off on it a little bit, and not like kind of forces it from now on. I know Henry said that he wants to go up and fight Max Holloway to get that belt. I don't know if he's gonna be able to do that or not, because I know he this past week they said he had shoulder surgery, so he's going to be out for a little while. But I mean, overall, it was a very, very good card. I put a poll out right after it, asking you guys what grade would you give it, A+, B, C, or fuck this card, and 71% of you guys said A+, and I have to agree with you. That was a good card. And one of the other polls I did put up was about the Tony Ferguson, Donald Cerrone, should they run it back, and 76% of you said that they should run it back. I just wonder how much of that 76% is the fan talking of, I think that's going to be an awesome fight, but not thinking about the title implications if Tony loses, this and that. Because even Dana White came out and said he's not sure if Tony's still the next one in line. Which, I mean, Dana, I don't know, man. I mean, what else does a kid have to do to get a shot at the belt? And if you go over to bellyupsports.com and head over to the forum, we kind of had a little discussion going on there about Dana White. Do you think he's a clown, or do you think he's bad for MMA? And my one response I put there was, he is a clown, but he's not bad for MMA. If you look what he did for UFC over these years, he built that up from nothing. I mean, it was basically dead in the water, and he built it up to a juggernaut of a business. But I think he plays the villain on camera and on Twitter, picking the fights with the fans and telling them shut up and blah blah. I bet you behind the scenes with the fighters, like you saw when Conor threw the dolly through the bus window and stuff like that, he made sure Rose was fine and all the other fighters were they okay, and if they didn't want to fight, they'll get paid and this and that, the other thing. So I think he's more a WWE type villain on camera. I still think he's a clown. He's starting to he's been rubbing me the wrong way a while now. especially with this whole controversy. I guess the Contender Series last night, the night before, the one guy that they were scouting, I guess he was destroying this guy, and with 10 seconds left, the kid went for a double leg takedown, and that's why Dana White didn't sign him. He said he has the skill set, he has the story, he has everything, but you went for that takedown, and I can't sign you. Why? So I actually hope Bellator comes in and tries to sign the kid, and builds him up and make Dana White regret not signing the kid. But speaking of possibly regretting signings, Chris Cyborg Justino may be a free agent soon. She has a fight coming up in July at UFC 240, and it might possibly be her last fight in UFC, being that it's her last fight on her contract. A little background about her. I mean, she's a former UFC women's featherweight champion. She was an Invicta champion. She was a Strikeforce champion. I mean, she's a legend. Everybody says Ronda brought women's fight to UFC. Yeah, I'll give her that. And some people think Ronda brought women's fighting to MMA. I don't think so. I always said it was Cyborg and oh jeez, girl's name just left my mind now. But anyways, I mean, she's a dominant fighter. She's knockout power left and right. Unfortunately, her last fight with Manny Nunez, I think she actually thought she could knock out Nunez, and she came in brawling, and Nunez caught her and knocked her out to win the belt. But some people in the UFC don't think there's much value in Cyborg. Now, here's my question to that. Kind of looking back at the Ronda Rousey situation, where she was a dominant fighter in that division, in Strikeforce and in UFC. But the talent finally caught up to Rousey. Is the talent finally catching up to Cyborg? I mean, I don't think it's as bad as it was for Rousey. I still think Cyborg is definitely a entertaining fighter that UFC should resign. And she did say that she will give an exclusive negotiating window to UFC before ultimately saying, okay, I'm going to test the free agent waters, see what my real value is. I mean, she was quoted to say, I want to see other promoters, see how much value I have. I think it's cool to see that before you can hear anything about that you don't have value. Let's see what another promoter has to say. I'll tell you what, I think if UFC don't sign her, and she says, or they lowball her, and she says, all right, I'm going to test the waters, again, I could see Bellator stepping in and throwing the value money at her that she wants, that she deserves. I mean, how can you say this girl, this fighter, has no value when she's 20-2? She was undefeated for 13 years until losing to Manny Nunez. Are you saying that she has no value just because for the longest time you guys had a rocky relationship with each other? Dana White going on ESPN and saying about the rematch that Cyborg said she wants against Manny Nunez. Dana White said that he doesn't think she wanted the rematch. When Cyborg with Ariel Helwani, talking to Ariel Helwani, said that she texted him about it, she's called him, she's done everything to try to get that fight. Now, what it sounds to me sounds like Dana White is starting to do like a little early PRing in case Cyborg leaves to go to one championship or Bellator or whatever it would be. And if she does, then he could say, well, she had no value here, and she says one thing but doesn't want this, and blah blah. Sorry, excuse me. I just think it would be a stupid move for UFC to let her walk, especially when you're trying to still build that division up. You don't want to bring C-list type fighters in, and just to keep getting pummeled by Nunez and Shevchenko and Andre, whatever the other girl's name is. The other option that she has too, and this is kind of interesting, is Cyborg did bring up about possibly wrestling. She was seen at last week's All Elite Wrestling show in Las Vegas, last month. She said she's not rolling that out, and even said she didn't get to fight Ronda Rousey in MMA. Maybe she'll wrestle her. Now that's one fight that I could always say I wish I would have saw when Ronda was on top of her game earlier in her UFC career, to go up against Cyborg. UFC definitely lost a lot of money by not signing Cyborg at that point and making that fight. There's a lot of fights we always ask each other, what's the one fight that you wish would have happened that never happened, or this was mine. I would have loved to see Cyborg and Ronda fight each other. I think Cyborg would have won. I think Cyborg would have knocked her out, but one little miss punch and Ronda could take you right down and put an armbar on you. So it's going to be curious to see how this all plays out. I mean, we still got a month, and you're probably seeing it a month or two before any signings or talk about it. So you probably got 3 more months or so before find out where Cyborg's going. Like I said, I hope UFC makes the right decision and re-signs her, and pay her value. She's one of them that helped bring women fighting to MMA. Now, one fighter that it seems like every week we talk about fighters retiring, and normally you might want to say unfortunately, but after a 20-year career, Chael Sonnen has announced his retirement last week when he fought Machida and ended up losing. I saw the kick. It was Machida, even though at what, close to 40 years old, 35, 40 years old, he's still quick with his legs, with that karate style fighting style that he has. It's interesting. And when I was doing a little background check on Chael Sonnen retiring and stuff like that, a couple things jumped out at me that I didn't know about him. I started to like him and follow him when he first fought Anderson Silva back in 2010. He just knows how to sell fights. And, for our Brazil listeners, you guys may think he went over the top with it, and maybe he did. But to sell a fight, he was perfect. Almost defeated Silva there before losing, I think it was like the second round or so, by armbar. But then in 2012 they did a rematch. Same thing, sold the fight and everything like that, and unfortunately he got knocked out that fight. But what happened, and I'll never forget this, what happened after the ref waved off the fight and commentators came in to talk to both fighters? Silva gave Sonnen a hug and told him something in his ear, and I think it was probably Joe Rogan that was doing the interviewing, and he said to Chael, he said, "Hey, what does Silva say?" And he said he wants me to come down to Brazil to have a cookout. Like that's awesome. You know, you're in there for 15 to 25 minutes, you know, at full length, beating the crap out of each other, and at the end of the fight to be able to look at each other and say, "Hey, let's go have a beer." That's a lot of respect. But the two things that jumped out at me was he had, like I said, he had a 22-year professional career, and he had a career record of 30-17 with one draw. It's just weird that 2010 is when he finally became mainstream with a record like that. I mean, that's... And then on top of that, here's some of the opponents that he fought over his career. He fought Fedor Emelianenko. He fought John Jones, Rampage Jackson, Wanderlei Silva, Tito Ortiz, Rashid Evans, Shogun Rua, Forrest Griffin, Anderson Silva, and Michael Bisping. I mean, you got 1, 2, 3. All those guys were champions at some point in their career. I mean, that they weren't no slouches. And to be 30-17, you know, hats off to you. He is an analyst on ESPN too, so I like to see these fighters get into the broadcast booth. You know, you got Dominic Cruz that does it. I don't know if Kenny Florian does it anymore. I know he used to be with Fox until they went over to ESPN. I'm not sure if he's still doing it. Cormier's pretty good as long as he stays off his phone and misses a knockout. I still can't believe that from a couple of pay-per-views ago. But he's a very intelligent fighter, very intelligent when it comes to wrestling. I would love to see him in the WWE or in All Elite Wrestling. I think he'd be a hell of a guy on the mic. Not sure if he's athletic. And you know, if he's not athletic enough, he could be a manager. He could be a Paul Heyman. You know, look at Paul Heyman. Obviously, he's not athletic, but he's a hell of a mic guy. You know, so. But kudos to you, Chael. Hell of a career. Thanks for all the good, you know, fights that you put on that I was able to watch. But before we go, one of my newer sports that I've been saying for a year now, I'm all in. I think this is the next big thing. Bare knuckle fighting championship. Just to give you a little rundown of the card, we have Paulie Malignaggi versus Artem Lobov. You have Chris Lieben versus... It was Brennan Ward, but he got pulled because he got hurt. I forget who the replacement is. But then we have Reggie Barnett and Johnny Bedford for the BKFC Lightweight Championship. This fight here will end the tournament. This tournament started back at BKFC 1. Then we have Joey Beltran versus Jamie Campbell. Then we have Abdil Velasquez versus Travis Thompson, and Julian Lane versus Tom Schoaf. I'll tell you what, this card could be a very, very good card. And to have it topped off with the Malignaggi-Lobov fight, with possibly Conor McGregor being in attendance, I just hope that it's not... I hope it's not a repeat of what happened when Conor fought Khabib and jumped over the fence and all that stuff, because I think if that happens here, BKFC loses all credibility as such a young start. Now, the president of BKFC did say they're going to up the security, but we saw how well that went for Vegas when Khabib fought Conor. To give a little backstory between why Malignaggi and Lobov don't like each other, Malignaggi trained with Conor as a sparring partner when Conor was about to fight Floyd Mayweather. Someone leaked a video of Conor supposedly knocking out Maganagi. I think it was a knockout. Maganagi said that Conor stepped on his foot and it's all lies and this and that. But there's only one reason why I want to see Lobov knock this a-hole out. They're both doing a great job of selling this fight. The little love tap, slap, whatever you want to call it, in the backstage or wherever that was. And then the little spat from Paul Maganagi at the one press conference. But the reason why I want Lobov to knock him out is Maganagi went further and said, I would spit on your mother if she was here too. Excuse me. Again, you don't bring family into trash talking when it's boxing or UFC, Bellator, MMA. That's off limits. Why? What do you gain by attacking a family or attacking their religion? You gain nothing. Sometimes you may even turn fans off from wanting to buy it or take you seriously or take the company seriously. And plus, I think this could be a good fight. Obviously, Maganagi is a world champion in his career. Lobov showed at his debut bare knuckle fight that he could punch, he could take hits. So I think this could be a good fight. I believe the Julian Lane and Tom Schoaf kicks off the card. Julian Lane, I think, fought 2 pay-per-views ago and ended up losing by decision, I believe it was. Tom Schoaf fought last pay-per-view, and he looked impressive. This could be a good, kicking the card off right. I'm going to go Tom Schoaf. After that, we have Abdil Velasquez versus Travis Thompson. I think Velasquez has only fought once in BKFC, and I believe he won that one. So I'm going to go with him again. And then Joey Beltran versus Jamie Campbell. Listen, ever since BKFC with Joey Beltran and Tony Lopez, if they're fighting each other, I'll figure out who I'll pick them. But if they're not fighting each other and they're fighting somebody else, I'm going with those guys. So Joey Beltran, I think his boxing is just really good, and I'll even say he may win by knockout. And then to really get into the meat of this fight card, and this possibly could steal fight of the night between all these fighters, is Reggie Barnett versus Johnny Bedford for the lightweight championship. Now, Reggie Barnett has been very dominant with every fighter that he's fought. I believe 3 or 4 of them. So dominant that his last fight, the guy literally ran around the ring scared and ended up having some of his pay deducted. So you really couldn't get to see Reggie Barnett's offense if that was the first time you tuned into a bare knuckle fighting pay-per-view. But I'll tell you what, he's very quick. He has a very good defense. But I'm going with Johnny Bedford. I think Bedford has more power, and I think he'll be able to get through that defense. I'm not saying it's going to be a knockout. I could definitely see this go to a decision, and I definitely could see this being a close decision. I believe, other than Beck Rollins winning the belt, every time a fighter won a new BKFC belt, it was by close decision. I don't think there was any stoppages yet. Then after that, we have Chris Lieben versus the replacement. Listen, I'm always taking Chris Lieben. If you guys watched his debut last time, I believe it was like 12 seconds. He just knocked the guy out. he wasn't very smart, and he decided to stand and bang with Lieben, and Lieben said, okay, let's go, and Lieben connected and knocked him out. Then for the main event, Paulie Malignaggi versus Artem Lobov, I kind of answered it already. I said I want Lobov to knock him out. I really think Lobov is going to win this. I think Malignaggi is going to think this is like, I got gloves on, I can throw 100% power, and I think he's going to learn that you can't do that. We've seen a couple fighters so far over the past couple pay-per-views break their knuckles and have to quit because they're throwing full power. But here is, and to touch on the Conor thing, like I said, the only way I see after this fight going south is if Paulie wins, Conor comes into this ring and starts trash talking to Paulie, and they just start going at it. I don't think it will be a sell. I think it'll be legit of them going at each other. And like I said, I could see it giving BKFC a black eye and a step backwards and not a step forward. If Paulie wins, and that doesn't happen with Conor coming in and all hell breaking loose, I could see Conor signing maybe a one fight only bare knuckle fight to squash this this beef between his camp and Paulie's camp, But only time will tell, and we'll see how that all goes. I definitely will be live tweeting it. I live tweeted every bare knuckle so far. I believe prelims start at 8. Not sure if it's on Facebook. The past couple times they were on Facebook Live, but the main card starts at 9 o'clock. If you want to follow the show and interact with me during me live tweeting it, just head over to Twitter. Follow the show at ST Sports Podcast. Follow my personal one at Jimbo ST Sports. Head over to, like I said, head over to Belly Up Sports. Not only do they have the forum, we have a bunch of writers that do different types of articles, even video games. If you're looking for something to read at the office or at work or whatnot, head over there. Also, head over to YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Trying to get that built up so we can do some more stuff on there. And also, you can follow us on Facebook. You like us. We usually throw the show on there as well. If you can't find us on iTunes or Spotify, Google Play, all the major ones. You could also find us on Podbean. That's where the network we're part of. But definitely head over there, like, share, and I'm supposed to be back tomorrow with Shoulders. We're gonna record tomorrow, so the band is back together. So you'll have another episode of Stay Tuned Sports tomorrow night. Till then, this is your good friend Jimbo, signing out.